Out of nowhere, my daughter said to me, "My other dad is better than you." I thought this was the most unfortunate thing I was going to hear until my mother-in-law spoke. What was worse, my wife broke my heart even further. So I had to act as a man. Hello, thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Jean from South Africa. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. I had envisioned a peaceful evening, a warm, home-cooked meal, laughter filling the dining room, and the simple comfort of my family gathered around a table. But in just a few moments, everything I thought I had built came crashing down. Sophie, my 8-year-old daughter, sat across from me, twirling her fork in her pasta, her small face scrunched up in dissatisfaction. Then, without warning, she blurted out the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. "My other dad is better than you." The air in the room thickened, and for a moment I thought I had misheard her. I set my fork down, my hands suddenly feeling heavy. "What did you say, sweetheart?" I asked, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Sophie rolled her eyes in that exaggerated way kids do when they think adults are just too slow to understand. "You heard me. My other dad is better than you." A sharp chuckle came from my left. Olivia's mother, the ever-judgmental Claudia, leaned back in her chair, arms crossed over her chest. There was no shock on her face, no attempt to correct Sophie. Instead, she smirked, her eyes gleaming with something I couldn't quite place: satisfaction. "You should leave us in peace," she said, as if this were a decision long made, and I was merely the last to find out. I turned to Olivia, expecting, no needing, her to say something, to step in and correct our daughter, to at least show some sign of discomfort at her mother's cruel remark. But she just sat there, expressionless, stabbing at her food as if this wasn't her problem. Something in me cracked. The room suddenly felt foreign. The walls of my own home, the place I had worked tirelessly to provide for them, now felt like they were caving in. I forced myself to stay composed, swallowing the anger that threatened to rise. "Olivia," I said, my voice low and firm, "is there something you want to tell me?" She didn't look up, didn't acknowledge me, just kept eating. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding, feeling like a stranger in my own life. The rest of the dinner passed in tense silence. My appetite was gone, but I forced myself to remain in my seat, watching, waiting, searching for some sign, some explanation. But none came. After the plates were cleared and the house settled into the quiet of the night, I stayed awake in my study, sipping whiskey and replaying the moment over and over in my head. Sophie's words, Claudia's smugness, Olivia's silence. I had seen cracks in my marriage before, but I had brushed them aside, thinking they were just part of the natural ebb and flow of life. Now I wasn't so sure. Then I heard it, a whisper. I wasn't sure at first. The house was large, and sounds had a way of carrying strangely at night. But then another voice, softer, more urgent. I placed my glass down carefully, my pulse quickening. Rising from my chair, I moved quietly down the hall, past the dimly lit staircase, following the hushed voices toward the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I held my breath and listened. "It's only 2 more weeks, Mom," Olivia whispered. My stomach turned to ice. "We've been patient this long. The lawyers said we just have to wait until the assets finalize. Then we leave. He won't even see it coming." My grip tightened on the doorframe. "Good," Claudia responded, her voice filled with venom. "He doesn't deserve to come out of this with anything. Not after everything we planned. And don't forget, I warned you not to marry him. He was never one of us." I felt the breath leave my lungs. A year? They had been planning this for a year. Every forced smile, every half-hearted kiss, every empty "I love you." It had all been a performance. A slow, calculated con to bleed me dry and leave me discarded. Rage burned through me like wildfire. I wanted to storm in, to demand answers, to drag them both out into the cold night and make them explain themselves. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath. Then another. A man who acts in anger is a man who loses. And I was not going to lose. I turned and walked away, my footsteps silent on the hardwood floor. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to argue or beg. No. I was going to end this on my terms. And when I was finished, they would regret ever thinking they could play me for a fool. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every whispered word I had overheard replayed in my mind, each one slicing through me like a blade. Olivia, the woman I had once trusted, the mother of my child, had been planning my downfall for a year, and I had been blind to it. But not anymore. By the time the first hint of dawn stretched across the sky, my decision was made. I wasn't going to beg, argue, or give them the satisfaction of a confrontation. No, I was going to handle this the way a man should, silently, swiftly, and with absolute precision. I reached for my phone and dialed the one person I knew I could trust in moments like these. Ethan, came the groggy voice of David Langley, my attorney and an old friend. It's 6 in the morning. What's going on? I need you to draft divorce papers. No. There was a pause, and then a sharp intake of breath. David had handled some of my business disputes before, but this was different. Are you sure? He asked. What happened? I have proof that Olivia has been planning to leave me for over a year. She's waiting for assets to finalize before making her move. I want to hit her first, before she even sees it coming. David was fully awake now. All right, I'll get started immediately. Do you want to negotiate, or are we going scorched earth? Scorched earth, I said without hesitation. I want everything locked down, accounts, investments, properties. By the time she wakes up, I want her to have nothing. Understood, he said, already typing in the background. I'll draft the papers and have them ready in a few hours. You should gather anything personal you need and get out of there before she catches on. I'm already on it. I hung up and moved quickly. I didn't bother packing much, just essentials. A couple of suits, my passport, some personal documents, and the one thing that mattered most, evidence. Over the past few months, I had noticed strange transactions, withdrawals Olivia couldn't explain, money moving in ways that didn't add up. At the time, I had convinced myself it was nothing. Now I knew better. I pulled out my laptop and accessed the security footage from my home office. Olivia had been careful, but not careful enough. She hadn't realized that my private study had a hidden camera, something I had installed years ago for security reasons. I fast-forwarded through months of footage, and then I found it. Her. Late at night, going through my desk, pulling out financial statements, taking pictures of my business accounts. Claudia, sitting beside her, whispering instructions, guiding her through the process. I pressed save. Then I sent the footage straight to David. Here's your evidence. Make sure this gets into the case. His reply came instantly. This changes everything. I'll make sure she doesn't get a cent. I shut the laptop. It was time to leave. I walked through the house one last time, looking around at the walls, the furniture, the framed photos of a family that had been nothing more than a mirage. I stopped outside Sophie's room. She was sleeping peacefully, curled up beneath her blanket, her small chest rising and falling in rhythmic motion. I swallowed hard. She was innocent in all this. She had no idea that the woman she trusted, the woman I had trusted, was manipulating her. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I love you, princess, I whispered. One day, you'll understand. And then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the house for the last time. The night air was cold as I slid into my car and drove off. I didn't look back. I didn't hesitate. I checked into a hotel under an alias, paid in cash, and locked my phone in the safe. I wouldn't let Olivia or Claudia track me down. Not yet. As I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Control. For the first time since this nightmare began, I was the one calling the shots. Tomorrow, Olivia would wake up expecting everything to be as she had planned. Instead, she would find her world collapsing around her, and I would be long gone. I woke up early the next morning, not because I had to, but because I wanted to be awake when Olivia's world shattered. It had only been a few hours since I walked out of that house, my house, but I wasn't looking back. Not for a second. I had spent too long being blind, too long trusting the wrong person. That ended today. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. Divorce papers served. I imagined Olivia waking up to find the envelope sitting on the kitchen counter, neatly placed where she couldn't miss it. I could see the confusion flickering across her face as she opened it, the slow, creeping horror as she realized what it meant. I wondered how long it would take before the rage set in, before she picked up her phone to call me. I didn't have to wait long. The phone rang once, then again, then again. I watched it light up on the bedside table of my hotel room. Olivia. Decline. Another call. Mother-in-law. Decline. I smiled to myself. They could call all they wanted. I wasn't picking up. They thought they were in control. Thought they had a foolproof plan to rip me apart, to take my daughter, my money, my life. They had spent a year scheming. And yet, they had never once considered the possibility that I might not play by their rules. They underestimated me. A few hours later, the first real panic must have set in. That's when Olivia tried to log in to our joint bank accounts and found nothing. The money was gone, moved, transferred to accounts she had no access to. Then the knock at the door. Not minors. The new owners of my house. Now their house serving her notice. 3 days. That's all she had before she had to pack up and leave. I imagine her face in that moment, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, her mind scrambling to process how it had all gone so wrong. She probably ran to call her backup plan next. The other man, the one she had been counting on to swoop in and save her. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Because the second he heard she was broke, that there was no cushy bank account for him to dip into, he vanished. No texts, no calls, no support, just silence. By noon, Olivia had tried everything. The accounts were frozen. The house was no longer hers. The man she had planned to replace me with was gone. And I was sitting in my hotel room, sipping coffee, watching the city stretch out in front of me. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Olivia had played her hand, and she had lost. Badly. And I wasn't finished yet. I knew Olivia well enough to predict how she'd react to losing everything. At first, there'd be denial. She'd convince herself this was just a temporary setback, that she could manipulate her way out of it. Then, when reality set in, the desperation would follow. And by nightfall, the anger would consume her. I didn't need to be there to see it unfold. I could picture it all too clearly. The slamming doors, the frantic pacing, the empty threats she'd hurl into the void as she realized she had nothing left. Not a home, not a safety net, not even her dignity. My lawyer updated me later that evening. Olivia had tried to fight back, called her own attorney, probably thinking she could still turn this around. But when she sat across from them and explained her situation, she got hit with a cold, hard truth. She had no leverage, no money, no property, no claim to my assets because I had the receipts. Evidence of her plotting, of her deceit, of her year-long betrayal, recorded in black and white. Legally, she was done. And just like that, the balance of power shifted. For the first time in our marriage, Olivia had no control over me. Her mother, who had played her part in this disaster, wasn't faring much better. When Olivia had been sitting at my dinner table, smirking while her mother told me to leave them in peace, she must have thought they'd be celebrating their victory soon. No, they were barely speaking. Blame is a funny thing. When everything falls apart, people start looking for someone to point a finger at. And Olivia's mother had chosen her own daughter. You ruined everything. I imagined those words slipping from her mother's lips like venom, Olivia's stomach twisting as she realized the woman who had encouraged her to destroy her own marriage was now turning against her. And Sophie, she wasn't taking it well either. A child doesn't always understand the complexity of betrayal, but they can feel when something is wrong. And Sophie, sharp, observant, and smarter than Olivia gave her credit for, was beginning to see the cracks. I heard from a mutual friend that she had started asking questions. Why did Daddy leave? Why is Mommy always mad? When can I see him? Questions Olivia couldn't answer without exposing the truth. So she fed her lies instead. Daddy abandoned us. He doesn't care about you. He's never coming back. But lies have a way of unraveling. Because the one thing Olivia didn't count on was Sophie remembering who I really was. While Olivia's world crumbled, mine flourished. I had moved into a sleek penthouse in the heart of the city, a place that felt like a fresh start. No ghosts from the past. No memories of whispered betrayals. Just me, my success, and my freedom. And yet, even with everything I had gained, there was still one thing left unresolved. Sophie. She was my daughter, my blood, and I wasn't about to let Olivia poison her against me. I had won the battle, but the war wasn't over. Not yet. The call started again. Not from Olivia this time. From numbers I didn't recognize. Burner phones, maybe. Friends of hers. Even her mother. Each one a weak attempt to get past the walls I had built. I let them all go to voicemail. Then a message popped up that made me pause. Sophie misses you. That was Olivia's latest tactic, playing the one card she thought I wouldn't ignore. I stared at the message for a long time, fingers hovering over the screen. Did Sophie really send that? Or was Olivia using her as bait, hoping I'd bite? I wasn't about to let her manipulate me. So I waited. An hour later, another message came in. This one was longer. Ethan, please. Let's talk. Sophie needs you. We can work this out. I almost laughed. Work this out? She had spent a year plotting to rip my life apart, and now, after losing everything, she suddenly wanted to talk. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. I got another call that evening. This time I answered. Not Olivia. My lawyer. She's in trouble, he said. Financial trouble. Apparently, Olivia had been dipping into money that wasn't hers. Shady transactions, backdoor deals, even a few fraudulent charges linked to our old accounts. Now, with no access to my wealth, those unpaid debts were catching up to her. And the collectors weren't exactly patient. She was drowning. Part of me thought back to the woman I had once loved. The woman I had built a life with, the mother of my child. But the other part, the part that had listened as she schemed to take me for everything I had, felt nothing. She made her choices, and choices have consequences. It wasn't long before Olivia made her final move. She showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when security called. Sir, there's a woman here, says she's your wife. Not anymore. I had them send her away, but she didn't leave. For an hour, she waited outside. When I finally stepped out of the building, she ran up to me, Sophie in tow. I looked down at my daughter, her big brown eyes searching mine. Daddy, she whispered. Something in my chest tightened. I crouched to her level. Hey, sweetheart. I miss you, she said, voice barely above a breath. Why won't you come home? I flicked my gaze to Olivia, who stood silently behind her, eyes pleading. This was her plan. To make me break. To make me forget. But I wasn't the man she used to manipulate. I met her gaze, cold and steady. This is not the way to fix what you've done. Tears welled in her eyes. But I wasn't moved. I turned back to Sophie and gave her a small, reassuring smile. You'll see me soon, okay? I promise. I wouldn't let Olivia use her as a weapon. And I wouldn't let her win. This wasn't over yet. I knew it was only a matter of time before Olivia made her final move. She had lost the house, the money, the future she thought she had secured by betraying me. And now her last gamble was standing right in front of me, eyes red, voice shaking. Ethan, please. Just hear me out. We were in a small cafe downtown, a neutral place where she had begged me to meet her one last time. Not for her. For Sophie. At least, that's what she claimed. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, giving her nothing. Go ahead. She swallowed hard, gripping the coffee cup in front of her like it was the only thing keeping her steady. I made a mistake, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. A bitter chuckle escaped me. You made a mistake? Her eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape. She had always been good at playing the victim, at twisting the narrative to make herself look like the one who had been wronged. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. She let out a shaky breath. I listened to my mother. She said you'd never see it coming. That I deserved better. That we deserved better. And better was stealing from me? She flinched. I thought he would take care of me. There it was. The man she had thrown our marriage away for the so-called better option had abandoned her the second he realized she was broke. It wasn't love. It was greed. And now here she was, sitting across from the man she had betrayed, looking for scraps of mercy. I let the silence stretch, watching her squirm. Then I spoke. You destroyed everything, Olivia. And for what? A fantasy? A lie? Tears welled in her eyes. I was wrong, Ethan. I see that now. But Sophie, she still needs both of us. At the mention of my daughter's name, my jaw clenched. Sophie needed her mother to put her first. I said, my voice low, firm. Instead, you used her as leverage. You lied to her. You made her think I didn't care. Her lip trembled. I can fix this. I shook my head. No, you can't. She looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time, I think she understood. There was no coming back from this. Some betrayals are too deep. Some choices too unforgivable. She had played her hand. And she had lost. I stood up, tossing a few bills onto the table. You'll hear from my lawyer about custody arrangements. Her eyes widened. Custody? Sophie deserves stability. A future. You can't give that to her. A tear slipped down her cheek. Ethan, please. But I was already walking away. This was her reckoning. And I was done. Few days later, we were in court. The courtroom was silent except for the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. I sat there, calm and composed, while Olivia fidgeted beside her lawyer, looking like a shell of the woman she once was. The judge's voice echoed through the chamber, delivering the final decision. Full custody is granted to Mr. Ethan Carter. Olivia gasped. Her mother, seated behind her, let out a strangled sob, but I felt nothing for either of them. The battle was over, and I had won. Outside the courthouse, Sophie ran into my arms. Daddy, she cried, gripping me so tight it almost hurt. I lifted her up, pressing a kiss to her forehead. It's over, sweetheart. We're going home. She smiled, but her little eyes flicked past me, searching. I turned and saw Olivia standing a few feet away. Alone. Defeated. For a moment, she just looked at us. Maybe she was waiting for sympathy. Maybe she thought I'd offer a second chance, a way back in. But there was nothing left to give her. I wasn't her safety net. I wasn't her fool. And I wasn't about to let her destroy what was left of my life. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. I didn't wait to hear it. I turned, carrying Sophie to the car, never looking back. The house I bought was far from the one Olivia and her mother had tried to steal from me. It was better. Fresh start. As I tucked Sophie into bed that night, she looked up at me, her big brown eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. Are we safe now, Daddy? She asked softly. I brushed her hair back, nodding. Yes, sweetheart. We are? She smiled, curling up under the blankets. Within minutes, she was asleep. I stood there for a long time, watching her breathe, letting it all sink in. Everything they had taken from me, I had taken back, and more. Because now, I had something far more valuable than money, than revenge. I had my freedom. I had my daughter. And as I turned off the light and walked out of the room, I knew one thing for sure. I had won. If you enjoyed this thrilling story of betrayal, revenge, and redemption, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping tales. What would you have done in Ethan's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Stay tuned for more stories that will keep you on